Hi, I'm Rob Emmett, and I'm actually in the office alone today, so I'm going to take off my mask now. I work here in the dean's office at Virginia Tech for as long as they let me, and I'm assistant director for global engagement, and I'm so happy that you all are here. And I'm also happy to share with everyone that I got vaccinated today after a very long wait. So I hope that some of you all are also getting vaccinated. Does seem like there's a light at the end of the tunnel for the pandemic. I have a deck of slides to share with you all today. If I could quickly just ask a question to get us started, if you would please share your intended major, the major you are intending to pursue at Virginia Tech in the chat. You just drop that in. If you're undecided, that is fine. You can write undecided. Please write undecided so I get a sense of where people are. There is no shame in being undecided, especially when you haven't even started your first year yet. If you are not undecided, some of you are set on things. That's wonderful to see. It's great to keep an open mind. This is a session about global engineering opportunities. I'm seeing people in aerospace, mechanical, civil, maybe chemical, undecided, thinking about electrical engineering. Great. The good news is that you can't go wrong. All the departments are wonderful. Lots of great opportunities lie ahead for you. I'm going to talk about some of the international opportunities today. Again, my name is Dr. Emmett, Rob Emmett. I'm Assistant Director for Global Engagement and an engineering online specialist. I work with some of our teaching online. I'm teaching a course this semester actually on U.S. engineering in a global context. This is our global context, and this is my public service announcement, folks. We have a travel policy in effect right now at Virginia Tech, and I would be remiss indeed if I did not share with you the fact that the map looks like this from the perspective of the CDC and the State Department. And because we have a very clear policy, Global Travel Policy 1070, Virginia Tech does not support sponsored travel to countries with level 3 or 4 warnings. So most of the map right now is looking pretty bad with level 4 levels, very high threat from the pandemic. So you're going to see a lot of images in this slide deck of students happily enjoying international travel in groups larger than 10 without social distancing or mask wearing. It's probably obvious these are all taken before the pandemic. Hokies love responsible global engagement. That's what I am endorsing today. So I'm going to be sharing images like this one of a beautiful group of first year students who are rising sophomores experiencing the Rising Sophomore Abroad program. This is from 2019, so prior to the pandemic. If you want to follow us online, you can find us on Instagram, IngAbroadVT. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. And you can also go to our website. I'll give you a link in a second. The question that I'll have you ponder now, and if you would also put this in the chat, when the pandemic ends, where do you want to go next? What are some of the countries where you would like to travel? This is information I try to gather whenever I do one of these talks to get a sense of where people are interested in going. The UK, popular choice. UK was the first destination for the Rising Sophomore Abroad program when it started back in 2008. Still a very popular track. Lots of students going to the United Kingdom. Other places that people want to go, you can drop those in the chat. Give me a sense. Yes, Germany. Germany is a popular destination. I lived in Germany for 3.5 years. I'm happy to talk with you all about opportunities in Germany. I maintain strong connections with partners in Darmstadt and think very fondly of the years I spent in Munich. So I hope that you'll get inspired for your next adventure here. I want to emphasize going overseas can be affordable. And I want to also underline that international experiences for engineers are going to open really cool post-graduation opportunities for you. Again, if you've got questions, you can email me here. It's ingabrod@vt.edu. You can also find us online, and you can find more of the information. So these are the stages of launching your career as a global engineer. First of all, consult with your family and your advisors. Review your options before you arrive on campus like you're doing right now, but go to our website and check out the programs. We have programs in each department. Plan the program, then when you get on campus, we have a central global education office that focuses on the study abroad options. If you're here on campus, I'd be like pointing, I'd be saying, okay, you're in Goodwin Hall, where most first year engineering education, the fundamentals classes are 1215, 1216. And right across the corner, like kitty corner from there, is the global education office. So you want to go in there and meet one of the peer advisors. And then the important thing, don't forget to reflect on your experience when you come back, right? So I'm going to talk today about the variety of international experiences you can have. The way these are organized is starting in your first year as an engineering student with short-term experiences, and then like working forward through the end of your senior year, possibly into grad school. And they're also loosely organized based on the duration of the experience. Okay. I think of this as kind of like we start with the most popular experiences that lots of students do. Prior to the pandemic, we had over 500 engineering students a year who would go overseas to work, study, or live abroad. The Rising Sophomore Abroad program, the first one I'm going to talk about, is our award-winning first-year program. It travels the Rising Sophomore Summer, right? The cool thing about this is in 2019, we had 180 students doing this. It is a faculty-led program. You take a course in the spring that counts towards several gen ed requirements called Global STEM Practice. It is a lecture course. It meets on a Wednesday typically, and you have the lecture, and then you have a discussion recitation section. That section is led by an instructor, and each section has a different travel track, right? So just let that sink in for a moment. You get to spend 15 weeks with a group of people in your recitation section that you then travel at the end of the spring semester for. You don't pay summer tuition. You travel 2 weeks. You go to really cool places. The UK I mentioned was one of the first tracks in 2008. Many of you probably recognize Stonehenge in the background. There is a component that is absolutely focused on cultural exchange. And then there's also a component that focuses on getting a sense of engineering practices in other cultures and making networking contacts. So you also, if you go to the UK, you'll visit the Mini Cooper factory. So you'll visit the automotive factory. People visited the Lamborghini factory on the track that traveled to Italy. There have been tracks that go to Australia, Germany, Morocco, and Spain, which are one of the more recent ones, China, South Africa, Chile, Argentina. You saw the picture earlier of the students up the lake in the Andes. So typically, you'll make site visits, you'll visit industry sites, you'll visit research labs. It's a fantastic experience. The good news is that RSAP at this point is scheduled tentatively to run in spring 2022, which means that as an entering freshman next fall, you would be able to sign up for RSAP. I don't know the scope of it yet. We don't know whether all the tracks it'll be running or if it'll be as large. My sense is probably not, but it will run. Second, many students work with the the organizations that do service projects overseas. The best ones are really doing a form of service learning, where the learning is in both directions. So you're working on a project with a partner overseas, giving you some descriptions for the organizations we have here on campus. Some of you may be familiar with Engineers Without Borders. It's a national organization that does community-based design projects, building things like bridges, schools overseas. They partner with disadvantaged areas around the world to improve quality of life. So they're implementing sustainable engineering projects. We have Service Without Borders at Virginia Tech, which was an outgrowth of having so many Virginia Tech engineers who wanted to do these projects that actually they proposed a project to EWB, and the national org said, sorry, you can't have more than 2 projects. So a group of seniors back in 2015 decided that they would create a separate organization, and that became Service Without Borders, which now has projects in Tanzania, Nepal, which you see in the lower left there, and the newest project is partnering with India. And I'm one of the advisors for Service Without Borders, so I can tell you how impactful, how meaningful participation is in those groups. The Society of Women Engineers has also had a project working on STEM education for girls in Malawi, which you see a photograph down there of a project done with middle school girls in Malawi. Now, those are short-term experiences. Typically, the service projects run from 2 weeks up to 10 weeks, perhaps, if you do a summer-long project. The longer projects that people typically do in their third year, given the check sheets for engineering, it's typically something you do in your junior year, are more traditional study abroad programs led by faculty, or some students do exchange programs where you take courses in the host university. We're fortunate that many of our departments have long-term programs that were worked out with the curriculum. So for aerospace, for example, we have a curriculum that is mapped with our partner in Hamburg, Germany, where you can go in your third year and take courses that count as technical electives towards the major in Hamburg, Germany, which is a very cool place to live and study. It's one of the cities that's a hub for Airbus. So in industry terms, if you're interested in aerospace, a fantastic place to learn. It is also one of the most vital, interesting cultural cities in Europe, with an opera house that's truly a wonder of construction, and many other just fascinating aspects that you would love to explore. Industrial systems engineering has an agreement with the university in Paraná, Brazil, in Curitiba, Brazil. The mechanical engineering department has many programs with the University of Darmstadt, Technical University of Darmstadt, Germany. Chemical engineering has got a unit operations lab that it runs in Denmark or Germany. See a picture up here in the upper left of civil engineering students with the Bridges and Society course that has run for many years. They go over to Europe and study alpine bridges and Dutch dams and all kinds of really cool stuff. As you get into your fourth year, and then many students, of course, do fast track graduate programs, master's programs, then you become eligible for programs like this, the IRES program, which is an NSF funded program. It runs 10 to 12 weeks of travel in the summer with cohorts like the students you see here. And they work on research projects fully funded by the National Science Foundation, led by faculty members at Virginia Tech. So Virginia Tech, when I did benchmarking of our programs about 3 years ago, we had 4 IRES programs running at Virginia Tech, which is as many as any other university in the United States. So it's a point of pride for us, the number of fully funded international research experience programs that we're able to get. They change year to year because they depend on the faculty expertise. This was a group that was doing a power electronics program, and I mentioned earlier, you can launch a career by participating in international experiences. So you see the young woman here. I don't know, you can't see my cursor, but it's the second young woman from the left is Christina Di Marino. She did an IRES project as a grad student. Now she's Dr. Di Marino and professor in electrical engineering up at the Center for Power Electronics in Arlington. I think of her as like an incredible success story. These students who participate in these experiences, traveling with a cohort, working on a research project, they pay for the travel there, they pay for your flight, you get a stipend. So it's effectively like doing an internship, but in a research lab overseas. It's a unique and just incredible experience. They have been really successful. So these are some of the past options. Of course, they don't only go to the UK. There's a wonderful project that was interrupted by the pandemic on coastal engineering with the University of Queensland in Australia. We had a project that ended after 4 years, because that's the phase of that particular IRES grant program in Shandong, China, that did bio-inspired engineering. There's a new one that's running in Scotland, and the professor who's running the one in China is actually starting up one in Brunei. So why should you do this? I always think of this little tidbit here. 71% of employers want college graduates to be interculturally competent. And the research shows from interviews with hiring managers in engineering, the higher you go up the chain, the more important it is for those hiring managers that you're interculturally competent. As Dr. Dan Sable, who's the CEO of VPT, a company that makes DC-DC converters here in town, says, he doesn't know of a single successful engineering company that isn't collaborating internationally on a significant scale. So this is a skill you want to develop. Finally, we have internship programs. We have a couple that are in-house that are directly worked out with the companies. SPTS in Wales, which is a chip maker, and Rolls-Royce, which is England, France. They've sent students to Singapore, and they are running that program actually virtually at the moment. There are also opportunities elsewhere for internships. We've had students do them in Spain and Germany. And finally, we have a number of third-party programs. So if nothing I have said sparked your interest, know that you can pretty much spin the globe and put your finger on it and find a program that runs there that will be associated with Virginia Tech through ICEP Direct, which is a network of university exchanges around the world, or through third-party programs like the GREEN program, which focuses on sustainable energy and water systems and travels to, actually, they were taking students to Antarctica, I think, that might be now out of date. They're still running the Iceland program this August officially, unless things change again with the CDC warnings. They are taking students to Japan and Peru. And then, of course, there are many scholarships out there. Our departments have scholarships for many of the programs that they run, and they give scholarships to students to go for example, to Hamburg in the aerospace department, or to Denmark if you're in chemical engineering. They will give scholarships to students who are selected to those programs. But there are also external scholarships. There's the money of things like NSF IRES, right, where it's fully funded. But there's also programs like Boren Awards that STEM students are very competitive for. That's a strategic language program that funds you to go overseas and learn a language of strategic security need. And then there are national foundations, both in Germany and the Scandinavian countries and elsewhere, that will fund you to come study because they want you to stay and be a grad student and then immigrate permanently and live there, to be quite honest. 2020, we also had a number of virtual exchanges that started up. We had virtual exchange project that we're running with students at Darmstadt in Germany. We have senior design project that continues to run with UK students in Loughborough through the aerospace department. We had 3 students do a tandem language program that was completely free that was run with the partner in Bochum, Germany. And then the IRES students this summer who are working with University of Nottingham are actually doing that program entirely online. So I'm not going to get into the details of each of these stories here, but you can read more about the specific experiences of individual students that we've profiled on our website. Evan in the upper left, Evan Charnoff, he's actually a senior now. He was in the civil engineering department. Evan is a success story, even though, just between us, he actually left the College of Engineering, went over to the College of Natural Resources and Environment, and entered their incredibly prestigious water resources management program. Part of the reason he did that was that he was running the Nepal project with the village of Dumba, and Sewang, who he's standing by here, is our partner with Service Without Borders in Dumba village in Nepal. And they were working on an irrigation system. And so he found that was his passion, and he, ended up switching majors. I think of that as a success story still, right? Because he found what he was passionate about, he pursued it, a really meaningful experience and relationships that were built with the community in Nepal that have been really influential to him. Val, you see a picture of Val here, who had done a summer internship in France with Michelin. She's now doing a PhD in aerospace engineering at Notre Dame. And again, I think of that as just an incredible success story. I know that it was extremely important for her to have pursued that internship opportunity overseas. It was a way to start solving more open-ended problems that actually helped her articulate her purpose to get into grad school. You see that red band there? That's my gentle reminder that we're still in a pandemic, and I don't know what's going to happen next year. I know that if the CDC is telling us not to travel, then I'm going to tell you not to travel. As much as I love to get overseas, I'm still going to tell you not to travel. However, you've got 4 years, right? So in your freshman year, in your sophomore year, in your junior year, in your senior year, you can internationalize your engineering education. And I hope you will do that. There are opportunities to do that. So if you got questions, I'm happy to take them now. Again, CDC and US Department of State has travel warnings in effect. So that's my not so subtle reminder that I want you all to be careful, and be happy to answer your questions now. So is there a list of all the 2 to 4 week study abroad programs for freshmen? So what I would recommend, well, first of all, the short list is RSAP program, because that's 2 weeks that you're abroad, right? And the second one that has been very popular is the Green program, which is a third-party program, because that's also 2 weeks. I know that this is the fastest growing area for study abroad, is like short-term study abroad. Those are the 2 most popular options that people take. But actually, the vast majority of, there's over 80 different programs that you can find at the Global Education Office website for Virginia Tech. But the vast majority are more traditional, immersive, longer exchange programs where you go and study at another university. So that is the honest answer. How often do people work at the places they have interned at? This is a great, so Quasi, you asked this question. This is a great question. So I'm assuming you're asking not specific to international, people who have, the majority of engineers who intern at companies expect to get at least a letter or tacit offer of employment. That's the way I would answer that. But that's for internships across the board, not just specific to international internships. I don't know that I can cite a precise percentage for that, but how often do people work at the places they've interned out? It's incredibly common for people to get job offers. The other thing I would say anecdotally is most students I've talked with have they're interviewing multiple places. They often get multiple offers. So in terms of how often people decide to work where they interned, I think that's a more complex question I can't answer. So how competitive are programs? The most people that apply get accepted. What's required to apply for these abroad programs? So these questions, so to apply for most abroad programs, there's a kind of a general application, right? That's something you do through a central database through Global Education Office. And that's a pretty simple thing. And it's, that's officially to get your name in the list because we care about you. We want to know where you are overseas so we can get you back if anything bad happens, because we have a group insurance policy, right, with CISI. So there's that aspect of the application that everybody has to fill out that piece of paperwork. It's important, even though it's not, nobody necessarily likes to do that, but it's important. And then different programs have different criteria. The IRES program is very competitive. The internship program's very competitive, okay? So those are, what's the acceptance rate for those? But it's probably less than 10% for those programs because they're fully paid opportunities. They're like applying for any other internship or job, but perhaps more competitive because they're very specialized, especially IRES, because they're research focused. So they're looking for a particular set of interests and skills associated with that particular research project. Are there scholarships available for global travel programs for first generation college students? Yes, there are many scholarships available for the travel programs. And are there ones specifically for first generation college students? There have been in the past, yes. And we have something called Academic Works, which is the database for all scholarships. And some of them are, what I would suggest is you start with the Academic Works and you search through the ones that you're eligible for. Some are by department, some are by major, and some have other criteria that would be related to first generation college students, for example. The Study Abroad, the Global Education Office gives out scholarships. Our office in the College of Engineering gives out scholarships through the Student Engineers Council. And then, as I mentioned, the departments give out scholarships. In addition, outside organizations also give scholarships. And so that's why I say, it can be affordable. The biggest piece of the affordability, of course, is if you have financial aid, your financial aid can travel with you. That's an important thing. If you go and study abroad with an exchange partner, when you're enrolled as a Virginia Tech student, you can apply your financial aid to studying abroad, right? Depending on where you choose to go, costs of living can be less than in Blacksburg. And then I have also known students with really advanced language skills who have done a direct enroll in a foreign university. It is very important, if you were to take a more independent route, that you work closely with your major advisor and you make sure you map out what courses you intend to take, some of which, of course, may ultimately not be available because it depends on the other institution overseas, but you map those out to make sure they would count towards your major. So we have someone in the transfer office here in College of Engineering named Ryan, who helps that process. I hope I answered your question, Ryan. That's a super important one. I know for me, the finances are a really important dimension to choosing to study abroad. I mentioned before, I worked overseas in Germany for 3.5 years, and definitely there was a period when I was pursuing my PhD where I didn't really do any international travel because it simply wasn't in my budget. So I really appreciate that concern, and I try to do everything I can to make sure that travel is affordable because I know firsthand it's invaluable. Like it's just one of the most intense and productive ways you can learn. Um, and it is just, will pay back whatever you invest in it tenfold. So, what is the most common year to travel? So, the most because of the RSAP program for engineering, the most common year is like at the end of your first year, right? Otherwise, it's second semester junior year. And then, so most students are traveling either in spring or summer, and typically on average, how much does it cost to study abroad? That's an excellent question. I'm gonna answer this. I'm not gonna give an average, which I feel bad about this. I feel like when politicians are doing like their town halls or something, they're trying to avoid answering a question. But rather I would say like there are different price points, right? So I'd say there are like short-term travel programs like RSAP where there are tracks that are like $4,000, right? $4,000, and many students get scholarships towards that. So you might get a scholarship for part of the $4,000. So that's what the RSAP, the travel portion costs. Okay. How much does it cost to do an exchange program overseas? That's going to depend on the living expenses where you live primarily and the travel costs. So you can figure a plane ticket, $1,500 for many places, right around that. The cost of living will differ. Many cities in Europe, Blacksburg is becoming more and more expensive place to live. So it can be comparable if you're able to get into student housing. So our students who travel to the UK, many of them they're budgeting with the NSF program. They have a stipend that pays well above what they need to find housing. But the housing might cost between like equivalent of like 600 to 1,000 a month. So which is Blacksburg, you can certainly find places for much cheaper to rent a room. But if you get into a student housing complex at a university overseas, it can be significantly cheaper. And I say that because to study abroad through an exchange university, you don't pay that university's tuition. You pay Virginia Tech tuition, and we have an exchange agreement. So it's just like a normal semester in that sense. So you're not paying like above and beyond that. There are always fees. There are always fees. So if for example, you travel to Germany and you go study at a partner university in Germany, the German university will charge you as a student their equivalent of student fee that you would get here added to your bill, and that fee in Germany will cover things like your bus, your train fare, like it'll cover your local transportation. It'll cover your membership in the student union, so you can use like facilities on campus. And that fee will be about €100. So I don't want to exaggerate the amount, but there are fees like that. So I'm trying to do the math in my head here and think about, okay, if you go 6 months abroad, you've got to have money for food, you've got to have money to live on. I mean, mentally, I would budget $10,000 if you were for living expenses for 6 months. I now feel like I really need to sit down and do a calculation here and figure out what the average cost is. I'm embarrassed I can't give a more precise answer. And it can be much less expensive than that too. That's the other thing. Like depending on where you travel. One of my favorite conversations I had was with a student named Jacob who got a scholarship, and it was like a federal scholarship. Well, I think it might have been a Boren scholarship actually, and studied in Chile for a semester. And so, that paid for most of the transportation costs to get there and living expenses. And then I think it paid for most of the tuition associated with the program that he did as well. There's a third-party program called the Green Program. It's I have to be honest, it's not the best name, right? But it is actually called the Green Program. And we have a minor program in engineering called Green Engineering that's run by Dr. McGinnis in material science engineering. And the students who do the green program and travel for 2 weeks, they can elect to take an independent study course that we developed. I worked with Sean to develop, so they can get a 3-credit independent study that counts towards the green engineering minor. So those programs, they're really intensive, and it's a third-party program. The program in Iceland actually has an agreement with the University of Iceland, so they offer like a 1.5 credit, but they focus on sustainable water and energy systems, which is part to do with the destinations that they have for the different programs. And the destination, so now they're going to Nepal. They actually have a program in Nepal that focuses on microgrid systems and solar power. So it doesn't look like they're offering the in Antarctica track. There is a program like Hokies in Antarctica, but I don't know how often that runs. But that's run in the past, and I can see the picture of one of our alums who sent it to me from the boat in Antarctica. I'm glad I looked at their website. They're now announcing that they are a partner of the Sustainable Development Goals. That's pretty neat. And that's been a popular program. We've had about 100 students from Virginia Tech in the last decade who participate. So they're small cohorts that travel. And what I think is neat about that program is you're not just there with other Virginia Tech students. So you get an opportunity to meet students from other universities in the U.S. that are in your group. And it's very intensive field-based learning. So they go up, they visit the like geothermal power generation plants in Iceland, and they go out on the glacier, and it's really just a incredible opportunity, and it's well organized by the program that runs it. Yeah, there are lots of engineers also from Penn State who have gone on that program. I wish you all success in all your ventures and good luck as you make the transition from your final year of high school here in the spring.